Hi, everyone. Today is a very special episode. I am so happy to have an actual professional producer, music producer, and a sound engineer with us. He is Mantiz. He also goes by, well, his real name is Jay McCorkle. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sure he's going to correct me if I got it wrong. He has worked with the likes of DaBaby and Jack Harlow. He actually gained notoriety when he co produced DaBaby's Gospel. I personally, it's actually one of my favorite, the baby's tracks. So I'm happy to have him here. He's going to be talking about a lot of things, and that includes industry issues, industry practices, and I also will be asking the questions that you guys submitted to me. Okay, please welcome Mantis. Hi, Mantis.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Okay, we're going to start right away because we do have a lot of questions to ask.
All
And
right.
I want to start things off with your music first. Please let us know, how did you actually get your start in music?
To be honest with you, it's a story I feel like I might have told 1,000 times, but I come from a musical family.
Okay.
My family has been making music, singing all around, especially the southeastern region of the country. But we've done a lot of traveling, so I just grew up in that. My grandfather, my father, my uncles, just kind of it's a family thing. But as far as me, my parents would tell you that as a very small child, I was
Mhm.
singing before I could talk. So, uh,
Okay. So
yeah,
when you say
um,
musical family, were your parents also involved in professional music, or was it
right,
church? Was it?
yeah. My grandfather had put together a group, and after some time, when my uncle and my father grew up, they became another group as it just kind of trickled down. And then the grandchildren came along, and I learned a lot of instruments, so I was able to play and sing with the group and travel all over. So yeah,
Oh.
definitely. And playing in church growing up would definitely come from a real faith-based oriented family. So definitely.
Oh, okay. So, but you personally, so okay, you've been doing music your entire life, basically. Probably you don't have a memory without music, but professionally, when did you start thinking, okay, this is going to be my profession?
um. Okay, I just celebrated my 38th birthday Tuesday, so
Oh my God,
kind of
related happy birthday.
I kind of like I'm one of the only ones in my friend group that accept how old we're getting. So I have to kind of use that to set the stage. I grew up in the 90s where all the kids wanted to be like Michael Jordan. So,
Right.
you know, when I tried out for basketball, and I'm all right at basketball. I'm just not the tallest person in the world or the most slender, but
Mhm.
when I didn't make the team and they gave you that speech that they always give when they have to cut people, I was like, well, that's fine. I don't have to come back to this. I'll just play on the court with the homies. It's not a problem. But music was always in my life, so around maybe sixth grade, seventh grade, I kind of figured like I really wanted to get serious about music and just see where I could go with it. As a kid, I was always making music. My cousins would have me freestyling and rapping and whatnot, and it just became a thing that I was just really good at. And it can't escape me. It's my first love. So
Right, right, right. So obviously you did well. You've actually collaborated with people like the baby and Jack Harlow,
mhm.
and I would say that those are two of some of the most successful collaborations that you've had. So can you tell us about how these collaborations actually started?
It actually took place with the relationship I have with a great friend of mine, my brother Jetson Made. He and I have been locked in for over a decade, and
Mhm.
with his first run on the baby's debut album, that produced the Suge single that catapulted the baby into superstardom rather. And when they were gearing up for the second album, he had come in town. He had
Mhm.
FaceTime while he was walking out of the mall to see where I was. I told him I was home, and he just pulled up on me. He brought First Class with him, another producer that was a part of the record. And we sat in my living room and just plugged up all of our equipment, and we made about 5 or 6 beats that day. One of them happened to be gospel.
Mhm.
The other happened to be one of my first placements before gospel, a song by an artist named Rico Nasty. She did a song called Fashion Week that she debuted at Fashion Week in New York that year. So,
Mhm.
you know, that,
Okay, so okay, so this is pretty amazing for me. So he you were recommended by your friend,
mhm.
and the baby just decided, okay, let's go to his house and let's make this work. Like let's
Oh
go.
well, the baby didn't come. It was just
Ah, okay.
yeah. It was Jetson Made and it was First Class, and we just put together our own session at the time, and he left with the beats on his computer to go make them happen.
Yeah.
I believe he went straight to the baby, but he didn't tell me what he was doing or the moves he
Right.
was making because I'm guessing management might have been taking care of that, but there will be times when, I'm still working, trying to make ends meet and make things happen. And when I had given him notice that my wife was pregnant,
Hmm.
he sent me back a picture of the baby, Gucci Mane, and Chance the Rapper in the studio together. And I
Oh.
wasn't sure why he sent it to me,
Right.
but he sent it to me as motivation to say, yo, you have a song with these people. So
Hmm.
he said, just hang on, just stay focused. It's
Hmm.
all going to work out. And sure enough, later that year, yeah,
Yeah. So I have maybe I should do this on a more personal conversation, but
sure, sure.
I really love the beat.
Thank you.
I love the beat. But okay, so I this is as far as I know. I know that even when things are recorded and
Mhm.
everything's basically mastered, it
Mm.
doesn't always get included in the album. So when did you actually, even after sending you that picture, when did you finally know, okay, my track is going to be in that album?
When he released the track list on his Instagram,
Oh, so you weren't given notice beforehand.
I had a feeling. I believe because uh the relationship the baby and Jet had, they built that rapport together. So I knew that he had submitted a lot of records,
Hmm.
and when he got the track list back, he knew that three had been selected. It had been gospel, vibes, and bop, and it was crazy because I heard bop the day the album was released, and I texted his phone immediately like, "Why wasn't I a part of bop? You know that sound like what we really do." So he was
Right.
like, "Man," he's like, "That was my bad. It was all good," but
Okay.
yeah. It really just kind of happened like that. Like he was able to just go take the beats where I can stay in the studio and just work.
Right, right.
And
So what about Jack Harlow? How did that happen?
that actually happened the exact same way, but it was funny because I personally think I was more familiar with Jack Harlow as an artist before Jet was, but by the time I had, found an email that maybe I
Right.
could send some beats to, that's the day that was pop and drop. So it was the funniest timing to me. I called his phone again, like, man, how do you keep moving this fast on the artists I'm trying to work with? And he's like, hey man, I'm gonna need you for the album when it's time to go in. So he sent me a couple of records. He actually sent me uh I it slips my mind. There's a song with Adam Levine that he has on there. And I was looking to be a part of that one. That's one of my
Mhm.
favorite ones. I actually had that record before Adam Levine was added to it, and I tried to add some more chords and organ to give it more of a soulful, churchy feel what they had gone for.
Mhm.
But I think in the end it might have just made it too much for Jack,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Well, we'll go a different direction with that." But we ended up me and First Class ended up putting a melody together,
Mhm.
ended up being the melody that they used for Route 66. So I played the synthesizers and a couple of chords on that melody, and then we sent it to Jet and Nico, and they added some drums to it, and then I think Foreign Tech came in at the end to add some more polished drums to it. They recorded about maybe 30 songs in one weekend down in Miami, and that was Jack's favorite song. I
Oh.
think I think originally when he sent it to me to show me what they had done with it, it was just an open verse, and uh, maybe I should say this, maybe I shouldn't. I think they were trying to get Drake on the song at first.
Oh,
They
okay.
were they were trying to get Drake for it because just how the song sounded, it was a good fit for where he was at that time that year. And when we didn't get that verse and we ended up getting ESTG on the record, I loved it way more than I thought what Drake could have possibly done to it.
Mhm.
No shade to Drake or whatever, but it's like that was ESTG's turn to really catapult himself into the forefront as a new artist, and it's a hometown anthem for them in Louisville, Kentucky. So
Right.
I was happy to really be a part of that. I thought that was kind of dope. So
Yeah. So having those two records, would you say that it helped you in your professional career? Did it make it easier for you to get projects?
somewhat. I don't think it really changed too many things because in today's world is has so much technology to make it where the bedroom producer could be the Grammy Award winner tomorrow.
Right.
So it once that became a thing in
Mhm.
technology and whatnot, then it kind of evened out the playing field for everyone. It
Mhm.
really just makes it a thing where it kind of is about who you know and certain connections being happenstance to meet artists at different mixers and industry events and develop a rapport with them. But yeah, it just happens like that from time to time. Sometimes these records could come with intent. Sometimes it's an experiment. It just happens. But I'm grateful for every opportunity.
Right, right. Okay, so you're also a rapper. Oh, before we go into that, it just came to my mind. You mentioned Drake. So where are you in this Kendrick Drake feud?
Uh, yeah, man. Kendrick smoked that boy. I probably should have said it in a more professional way on your platform, but I called it years ago. My best friend Tasha, she when she was first posting a lot of my music, back in like 2010, 2011, Kendrick was still on the rise then,
Mhm.
was still, really making his noise with breaking ground respectively. Um, I would have my projects right next to his, right next to Overly Dedicated and the cult classic project. So to be a fan from that era and just watch him become who he was, and I called it. I said, "Listen, man. I mean, I have all the confidence in myself. I'm not worried about any other rapper per se, but I can definitely respect the art that Kendrick Lamar gives us, and I'm a huge fan of it. I called it from day one. I just knew it. I said the day that those two actually cross paths, Kendrick is going to show y'all real hip hop, and sure indeed, I was right as always. But
Right, right. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I do not pretend to know anything about African American culture.
mm.
This is part of it, right? Like
Mm.
this is part of the culture, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to make peace in the future or that they are.
Well, uh, I will say this: for the last 15, almost 20 years of my life, I've been in a pursuit for truth. Truth in antiquity, truth
Mhm.
spiritually, and I've uncovered some things about myself and my people that are very alarming from historical accounts. And when I put that into play or made an application, when I said Kendrick versus a Drake, I just knew. I said this is going to be a much different rap battle. This is going to expose some societal issues that
Mm,
many people in generations before us have swept under the rug, and now the chickens have come home to roost.
right,
And
right.
there were things that now Kendrick nor Drake never actually said it lyrically on wax, but there are things that are alluded to in the lawsuit that proceeded that kind of blow the lid off the things I'm referring to, and it'll upset a lot of people because it's going to offer a perspective that they never deemed as true, and they'll
Right.
think it's a lie. But there's a revelation coming for the world that's kind of scary, and I knew it in 2013 when Kendrick dropped his control verse. When I saw
Mhm.
that, I said, well, when they actually rap, if it crosses this one line, somebody's lineage is going to get exposed, and while somebody else's lineage is going to change the perspective. And
Right. Right.
sure, indeed, that's what happened. And people are coming to terms with the things that it took me a long time to figure out on my own. So
Yeah, yeah. It is a complicated thing. Even as I was trying to research as much of it as I can, because I didn't even know how it started. So I was trying to research. I'm like, oh my God, this is deep.
it's a long story. Because I'm such a fan of not only hip hop but Kendrick Lamar. I know a great deal of the story. I can't tell you that I know everything because I wasn't there in
Mhm,
person, but
mhm.
from what I was able to witness, I've seen a lot of things, and it's kind of hard to say that they'll make peace. I personally believe because I'm a tad bit of a conspiracy theorist at heart too.
Mhm.
So I have a thought as to where and how they can make peace, but they would make peace on a level where the rest of us out here in society don't even understand if they did make peace. So, for the sake of the headline, I can't really see it happening. And if it does happen, it'll happen in a way that the majority of the world doesn't even understand. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Would you like to share that theory?
Uh, that's more one we could probably talk when we get off because
Okay, we
it's
need to
like
make
I
that.
said,
Yeah,
I,
lunch, dinner, coffee. Let me know.
yeah, that's one of the things I may have to come see you in person about. We can't talk about it over the airwaves too tough.
Okay, let's go back to your work now. You're also a rapper.
Yes.
You do you have any dream project? Well, either as a rapper yourself or as a producer or a sound engineer.
Um, that's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to say because I do everything in music. Literally, I do everything. So everything that I've done up to this point, I'm literally living my dreams. The only thing I haven't done yet is literally just become a millionaire. I haven't changed my tax bracket yet. So but everything else that I've wanted to do, I've done. I'm currently working on new music right now. I'm doing joint projects with some of my artists to kind of get them ready for their solo projects and debuts. I'm producing and writing. I'm just doing what I've always done and letting the exposure come.
Hmm.
So it's not too many dream things that I just want to do that I just have not done. I would just like to work with a lot of the artists I'm a fan of. I can't say that. But other than that, man, I think I've pretty much done it all. And if I haven't, I'm probably working on it and it's coming next. I just can't reveal it to you yet.
Right, right. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, well, you just mentioned that you want to work with a lot of your favorite artists. If you would like to give me three, not necessarily your top three, but just three of the many that you want to work with.
Yeah, I thought about that before the interview. It's hard. It's hard. If I could work with Kendrick, I would. I
Mhm.
know he's the talk of the game right now. But I would have always worked with Kendrick if I had the chance. There's another artist from LA that I'm fond of, and my son is now the biggest fan of because of me. But his name is Blast. He's also an artist and producer out there, and I feel like our styles like really parallel one another. He definitely is a hip hop artist, but is driven with an R&B feel, and I feel like I
Mhm.
would be the East Coast version of that a lot.
Mhm.
So, um, definitely those two. I really want to work with anyone. I think for years, when I was asked this question, I think Bruno Mars was my first answer before the rest of the world really understood how talented he truly is.
Yeah.
So I want to work with great musicians. I don't care what genre, what creed, wherever they come from. Like if we can make beautiful music, that's my goal. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who the artist is.
So then how would you personally, how would you define success? When do you feel you or another artist is already successful?
This might be a weird answer, but I feel like your haters are a unit of measurement for your success.
Mm,
So,
right.
like I'm at this point spiritually in my life where I'm not driven by money, and I never really too much cared to be famous. If I had to choose anything, it would be rich, but I'm not dictated by money. So I would say, out of all of my accomplishments and accolades, the people who get upset when I succeed,
Mhm.
though my success, if anything. So
That's a different perspective. It
yeah,
is a very different perspective.
I
um,
try to be somebody worth knowing. I
yeah,
try to
yeah,
think differently.
yeah. Okay. When you listen, you said that you don't mind working with anybody for as long as they write or create quality music.
Mhm.
What then attracts you to a track first or a song first? Is it melody? Is it beats? Or is it the personality or the lyrics?
For myself or for working with others?
For working with others.
Uh, my dream method of working, I like to actually, I'm here in my studio now. I like to have artists come in and we sit down and just have a conversation about, you know, where we meet in the middle with our thought process. And, those
Mm,
conversations turn into ideas for songs. And, then we just sit and just vibe. Is Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes a week, but I try to be as authentic as possible. Sometimes we're just experimental, and I could just hit the keyboard by accident, a sound to come out, and what can I do with that?
right,
But
right.
the way I really like to work, I like to just base it off of a conversation, off of a moment that we're feeling, and we agree and come together to a point of understanding on things. And those ideas just become songs. They become melodies. They become flows. They become the beat. It's never really any rule to which one will come first, but I love having a good melody come first because as a producer, as a musician, I tend to see colors in melody. So
Got it, got
I
it.
can tell how something is going to feel based off of how it sounds.
Okay, okay, got it. So right now you have your own label.
Hmm.
Um, do you
Art,
want to get signed?
uh, not really, not really. I don't mind doing business with a major, but it has to be on the right terms. That's kind of one of those things where I said we'll have to
Mhm.
talk later that to explain all the things I'm talking about in these last 15, 20 years of my life on this pursuit of truth and understanding about the world I live in. I came across a lot of things that said, okay, well, if you decide you're going to go the major route, the commercial route, that's going to put you in bed with these people. You'll have some things that will come test your faith, will come test your beliefs and your moral compass. And, it's up to you whether or not the money will be the thing that you follow, or will you follow the things that you've always stood on. So I can't tell you that I'm just rushing to work with the major, but being an industry producer is really just fine, long as they pay me on time.
Right, right,
But signing with a major, if it makes sense for not only myself but the artists that I believe in that I'm bringing to the table with me, long as it makes sense for them, you know, yeah, then we could do something. But other than that, I'm perfectly fine being independent, building a cult following, actually having a fan base that I can connect personally with, and make myself a more personable musician and artist that they can approach and support. So.
right. You've mentioned several times that you have artists. Are you managing them, discovering them?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're actually finding me versus me finding them,
Ah,
and we find the chemistry and we develop from there.
do
I
you
had
sign them under your label?
they're here under my label. Yeah,
Got it. Okay, okay. Do you plan to? So, what's the vision for the label? Do you want to become someday a major, or?
it has to make sense. Because the biggest thing that a label will be for you is a bank. So if we develop our own funding, I don't necessarily have to have a label. I own my own publishing company. I really have everything there, but the millions of dollars for upfront capital. Other than
Correct.
that,
Yeah.
everything is pretty much grassroots. We have a loyal cult following right
Right.
now.
Right.
Those numbers are steadily gaining every day. So, I'm not against signing with a major again, but I don't want to enter into a situation where it only benefits me and then I'll have to figure out how to make it work for my artists. I want it to benefit all of us, even if
Right.
my name signed into the paper. The situation itself has to be right, and there's too many things in the music industry alone that mathematically don't even make sense.
Yeah.
So once they figure that out, then they can holler at me.
Yeah. Just that, that upfront money does a lot. I mean, just looking at the charts right now, a lot of those songs don't even deserve to be there, but they are there because of the label. So, and you know what I'm talking about. So, all right. Let's shift a little bit into production process. This is one thing that a lot of my subscribers are actually very, very curious about. Um,
Mm.
a lot of people don't really know how things work. So let's start with the basics. What does a producer do? Is there any like specific when somebody comes to you, is there any specific like statement of work that you have to fulfill, or does it really depend on the artist what kind of involvement you're going to have?
Every business deal is different because we're dealing with intellectual property.
Okay.
So everyone has an idea. Every song is broken down into separate categories of songwriting and producing, but they're unanimously the same thing, virtuously the same thing. They kind of play the same role. Somebody writes the words, somebody writes the music. So depending on the song and sometimes depending on the genre, certain practices are more common than others. In hip hop, we pride ourselves on being songwriters. The rapper actually wrote his own rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's rare that if we're just being authentic in hip hop, that the song will already be completed by the time an artist hears it. It's usually he'll hear the beat and he'll
Mm-hmm.
write to it and then they'll record. So that's usually how it goes. Even in a situation where it could be an alternative record where you're actually presenting it to an artist, or even R&B. Uh, there's times where a person could actually have a melody or idea in their head where they can write a song first and will come to me as a producer, and I could actually build a song to what you heard when you wrote it, or vice versa. I could just create a melody and a songwriter could write it, and then we approach an A&R or a label to whatever artist they have in mind or could be taking records for. So there's all types of different ways where a song itself is created before it's given to you, the consumer. So it's kind of hard to really pinpoint exactly how to answer that question. It's just ideas at work. Once you formulate and then finalize an idea, then you take it to market.
Right. So I guess the practice has changed because I interviewed a producer. He's been in the business for like 35 years or something. He does pop music
Mhm.
specifically from Asia. And one of the
Mhm.
things that he said is it used to be that a producer actually does more logistical work than actual creative work. Like they
Right.
would put things together and then somebody else will be. So that has changed as well.
Not greatly, because that's really what I do, but the technology has changed so much. Producers, for the most part, if they were musicians, it was common for them to probably be niche at one instrument.
Okay.
Most songwriters, especially the way they portray them in movies, usually play a guitar and write to just a guitar riff, just so that they'll know how they will sing the song. The actual beat of the song when they record it may sound nothing like the actual guitar riff, but in music theory, the way it carried over. So a producer, if he wasn't an actual musician, he would compose on
Mm-hmm.
sheet music, so he knew how the song would go and would pay musicians to come into the studio, book them to record. With today's technology and digital music, you have all the sounds available on your computer, laptop, whatever you're working on, and you can just track everything out yourself. So me, I'm the type that will call another musician in if there's a certain sound that I'm looking for that I don't want to be digitally replicated,
Right.
like a guitar, for example.
Right.
Guitars so much dynamic capability with the things that they can do, from sliding to the fret noises to the way we can make them sound through amplifiers. And if you try to emulate that through MIDI and digital, it's not going to feel the same. Me personally, I know I'm a perfectionist, so there's times where you still call in, for example, I think Pharrell is the type of producer that, if he has the studio to facilitate it, they'll actually call in a Philharmonic orchestra to
Right.
play those string overtures on certain songs versus using a string sound on a keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
so it's all about what you're willing to do to capture the sound. It's almost like a science experiment every time you sit down.
Right, right. So then if you're is there a difference? Is there a big difference? Or maybe if you can describe the difference between what you do as a sound engineer and what you do as a producer. Like if you're a sound engineer, is there any real control do you have, or do they simply tell you, I want this specific sound, make it happen?
Both.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times the engineer would get called the producer because the producers would be the ones who either own and maintain and ran the studios, and they would be the ones to record the song. So an
Got it.
engineer records the song. That's why a lot of engineers try to move like producers, but
Hmm.
the actual producers are the guys who made the beat. Now, me as a producer, what we work in is a digital audio workstation called Pro Tools. It's been known as the industry standard for the last 20 years. I actually produce my songs in Pro Tools. I record them in Pro Tools, make the beat in Pro Tools, and I mix and master the records down in Pro Tools. I do everything in Pro Tools. So in that form, it makes me that type of producer from yesteryear, where not only am I the recording engineer, but then I become the mixing engineer and the mastering engineer. And
Mm,
then the title as producer stands overall for the record, although I also produced the music. So
got it. Got it.
a
Got it.
lot. I fill a lot of roles in on one song at a time.
I know. I know. But yeah. Oh wow. Okay. I thought when you're an engineer, it's just like, okay, this is what I want. You
Yeah,
might
there's
make
different
it
types.
happen.
Yeah, there's different types of engineers that
Yeah. Yeah.
recording, mixing. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens though? I'm just because you've worked with so many artists. What happens when you don't agree with the approach, or the outcome that the artist wants, or it could be vice versa. You want something and the artist doesn't feel that that's the right thing. How do you?
One thing I try to do with every artist I work with, I try to have a long conversation up front about asking them to trust me. I just want your trust. I've been doing this for so long that I really know how to create a good sound.
Mhm.
Just trust me. So then there'll come into practices where I can gauge your vocal range for certain
Mhm.
things. And I'll say, okay, this song might be a little bit more difficult for you to sing because this key might be a little bit out of your range. And then I'll sing it along with them, and I'll pay attention to what the muscles in my body are doing involuntarily, and then I'll take note of that and have them do that voluntarily in order to make it happen. So it's going to sound hilarious when I say this. But for example, one of my artists has a mild tenor voice, but sometimes when the song is just going and you have a lot of energy and he wants to carry the record over into a higher note, and it doesn't just catch all the way. He'll hit the note, but it doesn't sound as good as it could. I'll tell him, stand on your tippy toes or squeeze your glutes together,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it'll push the note out. Sometimes he'll have to hit a lower note. I'll say, okay, look more towards the ground, point your chin down because it'll focus on those things. So it's like I'll play the role of a vocal coach in order to get the artist trust, in order to get the right sound and record. So it's there have been times where there may be a creative disconnect, and
Mhm.
we don't always agree. But a lot of times, the vast majority of the time, I just say trust me, and then when they hear the finished product, they were so happy that they trusted me. So it's definitely some resistance. It's definitely some hard work, but the long road that I've traveled on the way to get to this point, is definitely not there for nothing. It's
Yeah.
not void of anything.
Have you ever encountered an artist who wanted to work with you and you feel like, yeah, no, you don't have a future in music. Try to find a 9 to 5 or something. Have you ever
Uh,
encountered an artist like that?
that's the tough thing, because when I want to tell those artists no, I still say, well, let's see what we can do.
Okay.
That's and it's like it'll make me look like a good person, but it also make me a person that has wasted a lot of time by some people I should have kicked rocks to. But I always want to genuinely try, because knowing what I can do musically, I always feel like there's a chance. So at least the music itself will sound good if the person on the song doesn't.
Right, right, right. Okay. Um, so once you're done with the record, and if
Mhm.
you've worked with some major artists already who are signed, has it ever happened to you when the label actually tried to take control and change something that you didn't want to change or
Not to any of the placements, but I do remember one time I believe Tasha had told me uh when I was living in Atlanta, and I think she was trying to service a record that we had done,
Mhm.
and some of the A&Rs that listened to it figured that, being that I was residing in Atlanta, that I was just an artist coming out of the Atlanta market, just like coming through Atlanta, and had the Atlanta cosign. And based on the artists that were out at the time, they wanted to know, well, why doesn't he put some auto tune on his voice? And she was like, because it doesn't need it. Like, you know. And, but that one thing kind of just, I can't tell you whether it was a hindrance or not, because I felt like had we done that, they probably would have moved forward. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been happy about it. I would have felt like I changed, what I did. And I don't think anybody would actually like the song with auto tune on it. It didn't serve a purpose, but they saw what it was doing for other artists coming out of Atlanta. And it was like, well, why don't you do that? I think we got a hit if we do it like that. Nah, they were just swinging for air, just trying to figure it
Right,
out.
right, right, right. Okay, so we will go back into autotune, but before that,
Mm.
what will make you say no to a project then? You said that you always try. You always want to try, but what will be that one thing when you say no, I'm not going to do this?
When I'm finally fed up from saying yes.
So you will still try.
I love music this much. I'll make a song with you when we get off of here. That's how much I love music. I just want to try. I'll try. And being that everyone isn't as talented as we really think they are. So
Right.
when you have the technology that I have, I make some interesting results happen. I've really impressed some people, and because of that, I have a lot of secrets that I have to hold. So I'm happy when these artists get their accolades and they're just doing get their flowers, but they can definitely break one of them flowers off for me, please. Me and my computer.
Okay, so let's go into autotune. Let's talk about some industry practices. You just mentioned that there's this one label who actually wanted to put some autotune in something that you didn't feel it is needed. But I would assume then that there are times when you feel like, okay, autotune is needed, but has it ever come to a point, because it's so common nowadays, has it ever come to a point where you feel like it's overused, but
I
not
felt like
used?
that. I felt like that when it became the sound of Atlanta. When it became the sound of Atlanta, that was it. And that was like 2012, 2013. So I felt this
Oh,
13, 14 years.
right, right.
This now I love auto tune because I was a Roger Troutman fan. So my wife bought me a talk box for my birthday a few years back. So I love that sound. I love the musician that T Pain is. I love all the uses it has become. I love the future that love the artist that Future is. But it's a lot of people that just think auto tune is some magical thing, and it's not. It's literally a pitch correction plugin. And the reason why we use pitch correction, especially in the science of sound, is that it's very hard to make the exact same sound twice. I could snap my finger
Mm,
back to back. Both of those times it sounded slightly different due to different characteristics. So whenever you sing something, your pitch may be flatter or sharper than exactly where it's tuned to be. And auto tune is helped to use get you to that exact note more than
right.
anything. And it's done to make the vocal sound more polished. You know, when
Mhm.
you might can come across a very talented vocalist that has very good pitch, but no one is pitch perfect. So auto tune just kind of gives you that extra. But if you're nowhere close to pitch perfect,
Yeah.
auto tune is going to give you that full robotic sound. So you definitely have to be able to sing somewhat. But with me, the people who aren't the best singers, but they can, as we say in my community, hold a note. You know, I use a manual pitch correction where I actually go in and fix the vocal myself. And I play piano. That's my main instrument. So I deal with pitches and tones all day. And, you know, I literally make people sing better than they ever could. And then I'll send it through auto tune and let auto tune make it sound really pretty. So, you know, it's a lot of hard work, but yeah, it's definitely
Right.
used a lot. Some people use it for a certain sound and aesthetic, but you know, it's definitely overused. I don't always see the creative vision with certain records, but you know, if you like it, I love it. I don't hate it. I I use it the way that I use it. I try not to be cliche with my use of it. I try to make it something that really sounds melodious and pleasing to the ear. So
Okay. So you just mentioned that there is actually nobody that's pitch perfect. But among the vocalists, past or present, living or dead, who would you say is closest to actually getting the pitches always on point?
there's a lot of artists. There's a lot of artists. I'd say the best artist that you can think of before 1990. So
Mm,
whoever was singing before 1990 and they sounded great, those people. Everybody after 1990, when auto tune first actually was produced, before it became well, don't quote me on the year, but I believe it was 1990, 91, or that might have been when Pro Tools first came around. But auto tune, before it became a plugin, it was an actual analog box, just like the rest of the equipment that you see in the studios, and the producer would have to literally program it so that you know they would know what you were trying to do. And then they developed it into a VST plugin that could work. And you know they've worked wonders with it, from Madonna to T Pain to
mhm.
it's been everywhere. But once it got to the point where you know you could punch in or you could pick up where you left off on a recording and made the recording process so easier, then a lot more less talented vocalists started coming in. The people before the digital revolution that had to sing from the beginning of the song to the end flawlessly, those were the best singers we ever had. You know,
Okay. So I guess MJ
I love Mike. I
Houston.
love Mike. I, I love Mike. I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something that might be a little controversial. Mike and his brothers were a complete package, but it's kind of like a jack of all trades thing, a master of none. Michael Jackson was a better performer on the dance end than he was a performer on the singing end. Now he definitely could sing, but that wasn't his best, you know, attribute. There was actually another family group called the Silvers that mirrored the Jacksons around the same time, that you know were actually much better vocalists and probably better musicians than the Jacksons, but didn't have the same kind of hits as the
Mhm.
Jacksons. So, you know, with music, everything has to just work in a certain way, or there's forces at work that make things work a certain way.
Okay. Something that always puzzles me though. Do you believe that an artist to be really big, regardless of the talent, should have that X factor? Or is that manufactured?
It's definitely manufactured. All superstars are manufactured.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
There's actually no formula to going viral. The people who actually can go viral on purpose are the manufacturers, or they're handled by the manufacturer.
Right. Got
I'm
it.
trying not. I'm trying not to turn your energy into one of those.
Okay,
I'm,
we'll reserve it
I
for.
feel like I got in trouble, but when I come to in LA, we'll talk all day long.
Okay.
Blow your mind.
All right. So when do you think though, just for other artists, not personally, but for other artists, when do you think a record is successful? Is it when it goes to Billboard or number of streams?
Billboard definitely tracks the popularity of the activity of the record, but there's a lot of artists that have a low overhead to actually produce a song. So as long as they make back the money that they invested in it, that's a success. A lot of times, for example, this number has definitely changed, but there was a quote that showed there was about 40,000 songs, roughly 40,000 songs released to the internet every single day.
Every single, yeah.
So it's like as an independent artist, you have to fight to be heard throughout that every single day. Even if your song is the number one song that day, you got to fight it again tomorrow.
Right, right,
So when you have that type of competition at hand, it's very difficult to get into the Billboard conversation. But as an independent artist, if you have a fan base with a decent number, let's say even if you only had 500 fans that were anticipating your song,
hmm,
and they believed in you so much that they would pay whatever price you were charging for the song.
hmm.
If your overhead is low, your return is going to be super high.
Right,
You know,
right.
so your
So you,
success is how you gauge it.
right. So how, so it's very relative, I guess, is to.
Yeah.
So how are producers paid though? Or
Mm.
do you get, is it a fixed fee or royalties?
You can do both. It's a certain type of way because it's how the song generates money. It generates it through sync royalties and mechanical royalties. So with production, as far as producers and labels, we take a fee in the upfront negotiation for actually even making the beat, or you can take a percentage
Mm-hmm.
for the royalties and get paid on the back end. If you don't take a producer fee, a lot of times that helps you negotiate for a bigger percentage on the back end. But you're dealing with the labels and the publishing companies. It's a lot. It's not designed for anyone to get paid as much as the label gets paid out of the portion during the tenure of the exploitation of the record. So
Right.
with me as an independent artist, I could create a song today, enter into, let's say, maybe a 2 to 3 year contract with the label. They'll exploit it for those 2 3 years, make all the money they can, and then it returns to me. And then I have to try to figure out how to make more money off the song.
Right.
You know,
So,
so
okay. So do you then, given that, um, you might say that we'll talk about it when we meet in LA, but I
definitely,
will
we're
still
definitely
ask
gonna hang out.
it. I will still ask this though.
Yeah, please.
Um, do you then feel that having a label is more an advantage or a disadvantage in this front, given that it takes time for you to recover?
It's based on your situation. Um, there's artists and musicians out there that don't have the same amount quantitatively of talent as I have, but they have more money to invest in their career than I.
Right.
So it's all about the situation, whatever makes sense for you. Without that capital, me going to a label today, they would definitely have the upper hand leverage because they're fronting all the money. They would be a bank. But if I
Mhm.
had my own money there, I don't really need the label as much except for the connections to help the be pushed and marketed properly. So it's really all about seeing your strong points and where it's beneficial for everyone, just to do business.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay. All right. So I'm sure we're going to discuss that more when we when
Definitely.
we meet in
And
LA.
we're gonna have so much fun in person, I promise. I can't wait. I can't wait. I look
Okay.
forward to it.
Without a label, then how do you land projects? Do you pitch? Is it purely by connection? You did mention earlier that most often they actually find you. So how is that? How does that happen?
One of the first songs that I ever had featured in Double XL magazine was on their website, in allhiphop.com. And it was a song that I made in 2010 called Political Dialogue. In the song, I was talking about it's not about how you flow, it's about who you know. So
Mm,
having those connections in different places, just knowing Tasha, just knowing the people that I know, with DJ Louis V, there's people who are putting work in the industry, and you know building with other people, developing a rapport to where they can put your name in these rooms, and you get a chance to have those conversations with people, get the opportunities to present them music. So it's really just one of those things. You can have connections, certain things can fall in your lap, but once we got to this age of the internet,
mm-hmm,
it was really the it was only so long that the music business really had their stake in it. Of course, like, let's say when I was in middle school, the greatest threat to the music business was Napster and LimeWire, when it became about the piracy of the music itself.
mm-hmm,
Once they put it into real small files called MP3s that
mm-hmm.
still pack a giant size sound, and you get the average consumer that doesn't necessarily need the sound to be HD quality, just enough to where their ears can recognize what they're listening to. They'll take it. They'll take it at a smaller quality for a cheaper grab. That's when I knew the industry was in trouble. They started making more technology to where the average person could create and produce uh, a, a standard quality song in the comfort of their home, in their
Right,
bedroom. So when you have to work with these things, that's the reason we now have a streaming.
right,
They don't sell CDs anymore because people won't put their phone down to pick a CD up.
right, right.
So when you have all these different things that you have to contend with, you have to figure out what makes sense for you as an artist or as a producer, because the label had to do everything they could to still make some type of money in order for it to be a lucrative business.
Okay. This is actually a nice segue to the next part of the interview. We'll talk about some issues.
Perfect.
And Napster has always been something that puzzled me because I felt like to a certain degree, it was good. To a certain degree, it wasn't good.
Hmm.
And I wasn't sure if it was because of how we as society handled the technology,
Hmm.
or if it was because the powers that be found a way on how to stop him from doing what he was doing. So personally, do you think there could have been a way when we could have actually used his technology, Napster's technology, to the advantage more of the artists than the labels?
Unfortunately, no. And I'll say this: the internet itself was born in 1990 or 1987, I believe. Me and the World Wide Web are the same age. So, to some degree, the dark web had always been there,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been around for a while to see crime take place. There's bad things done by people. I don't want to just label people bad, but we've seen some dark things in this thing called life. So there's the nature of mankind itself. Uh, any opportunity, everybody doesn't have the same amount of money. So to some degree, somebody wants to be able to save money, and one method of saving money would be theft. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you have these elements at play, that's all it really took. Now they'll phrase it a certain way to call it file sharing, but this is straight up piracy. You're
Right,
taking
right,
something that you felt you own, because it will really start from us taking CDs and ripping the songs into MP3s.
right.
So a lot of people didn't feel like they was doing anything wrong. They was just making a copy of music that they purchased. But it became a thing where now this person, this person, this person, this person has the song, and they have it for free. They didn't pay for it the way you did. Then that's bootlegging, that's piracy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny how it would start with a Napster and a LimeWire, and then the music industry moves into streaming, and now Napster pays the most in all the streaming services. The
I
people that
know.
the people who actually kicked off the downfall of the music business now pays the most to the artist, but it doesn't have the same user fan base or interface as the top Apples and Spotify's and Pandora's.
Right. Right. Yeah, I actually keep on promoting Napster on my channel. I keep on
Mhm.
saying it's because they pay the most.
They pay the most.
Yeah, and Spotify is the one of the ones that pay the least. So I said it's so odd that they're the number one platform when they pay the least, and they don't have that great of a quality in terms of music.
At all. It's
Yeah,
definitely a manufactured relationship between Spotify and the labels.
right,
Definitely. And
right,
then when you have services like Tidal, they're marketed a certain way because you have a prominent artist like Jay-Z being the face of it. So Napster's biggest problem is they already left a bad taste in certain people's mouth in a particular generation. So they just don't market themselves as, a streaming platform. You either know about them or you don't. So
right, right, right. Well, I will continue to push for it because I know that
yeah,
artists benefit for it greatly.
definitely, definitely.
Okay, so now going into hip hop and rap, it is now a global genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's out of your control to a certain extent. You really can't stop people from adapting the genre. How do you feel when you hear other people from other countries rap? Do you feel critical, amused? Do you feel like, oh my God, don't do it that way?
Uh, because of some of those things I told you I'd have to tell you about, there's a there's a guarding of culture that has to be preeminent,
Mm-hmm.
but it's music is the universal language. So I love when people who don't look like me love what we have going on as long as they respect it. That's the biggest thing because there are societal issues that say people who look like me don't have a culture, but you can see where its influence reaches. So I love to see how global hip hop and urban music has become, but as long as there's respect to it, like I don't listen to a lot of K-pop, but
Mm-hmm.
mostly because I'm not bilingual. I like the way the Afro beats feels, but I don't listen to a lot of Afro beats simply because I'm not bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
I love Spanish music, like the energy that's in it. It definitely makes you dance, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, I'm not bilingual. So,
Right.
it's just me being able to gravitate towards something that represents who I am and what we come from. I love the effect that it can have on other people the same way their music can have an effect on me. But, even though, like I said, I don't listen to a lot of it, I've heard a lot of it. Like, I will say this. I love Asian cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
I love Asian cuisine. When I was out in LA, there's a spot off of the San Gabriel and the Rosemead area. It's an Asian bistro, and they have all types of different tastes from the different actual places in Asia. I tried Indonesian fried rice for the first time, and it blew my mind. I was like, why
Mm-hmm.
why do we don't have this at home? This is
Mm-hmm.
something I can appreciate, and I don't have any way to take away from it that
Mm-hmm.
would be disrespectful to Asian culture. So, as long as it's one of those things, as long as we all can, live in harmony
Mm-hmm.
about a thing. I have no problem with anyone who wants to do hip hop as long as we're doing it right.
Okay. So, but with the limited amount of K-pop you've heard, what do you think of it?
Oh, it's definitely energetic. There's definitely some great sounds. I will say this. I have heard some Korean and R&B, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about them folks could sing. It sounded so good. I just had no clue what they were saying. That
Right.
that that was really the only thing, and I thought it was actually dope, very amazing. But I just like, man, I don't even know how to approach these people to tell
Mhm,
them, yeah, I really like what you do. I'd have
mhm,
to have a translator app, something
mhm.
like that. So it's just there's just that small cultural disconnect. But what I've heard, I like. I couldn't tell you the name of the song or the artist, but if I
Mhm.
heard it again, I'd be like, that's it. That was it.
Okay. So, but if there's anything one thing that you can teach or maybe share or maybe advice to these people, K-pop artists, you may have heard that a lot of rappers in K-pop aren't really rappers; they're just taught to rap.
Mhm.
What would that thing be for them to show a bit more respect to the history of the genre?
There's certain things just outside of our hands. I feel like if all of us had our own private jet, we would travel all day long, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, me personally, even as much as I love Asian cuisine, I've never been to Asia,
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I have to find the bridge to connect to people of Asian descent and heritage, so I can have a greater understanding for what I love about their culture. The same way here, if K-pop wants to uh, get more urban and understand, just come ask us. It's
Got
no
it.
problem. The same way you and I having a wonderful conversation. This started off as a more of a professional interview on a professional platform, but the comfort that we have here in dialogue is literally that simple. It's nothing we can't talk about and get an understanding of.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Next issue is payola. Does it
Mm.
really exist? Does it still exist? And how rampant is it?
Yes, yes, and crazy. Yes, yes, and crazy. But the thing is, it happens in ways you don't understand. It doesn't just you don't walk into a radio station and just put it in someone's hand. You
Right.
understand that radio is actually there for the commercials and not for the music. The music is actually the bonus. So the money that's spent at radio is spent in the advertising department.
Hmm.
Once you understand how advertising goes, then you can start seeing how other things go. But payola itself is an illegal thing. So,
Right.
it goes back to those things where it's about relationships, who you know.
Hmm.
But uh, Louis V told me personally, he said, "Hey man, hey, every song you hear on the radio is paid to be there, and all the songs we heard are from major label artists. So there is a tab being covered in
Hmm.
order to keep the same 10 songs playing every single day in select markets and regions. So yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy too. So yeah."
Yeah, I think that's why it's so hard to stop because it doesn't happen like in the way that we think it actually happens.
Mhm.
What about AI? How has it changed production, and do you think it'll come to a point where AI is going to write better music than human beings?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And because I'm a man of faith
Hmm.
is where that's where it starts at with me. I am a creative made by the creator, and I like creativity. So there's a part of me that thinks AI is cool, but as a man of faith, when I tell people straight up, like my wife asked me a question yesterday, and I said, "Well, what does AI stand for?" She said, "Artificial intelligence." I said, "There's your answer." So it's one of those things where AI could come up with some cool stuff, but the human mind is sculpted after the creator, and the things that we can come up with, like when you step outside your door and you really take a good look at nature, and you like, wow,
Right.
you know
Right.
everything that AI does is a replicate of that. AI wouldn't create it on its own. Is it's on prompts. It's artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
It's not the intelligence. It's not omnipresent. It's not omnipotent. It's not omniscient. Is really just a computer. And I hate the fact that I have to tell a computer that the computer is the computer so that I can get on websites. But AI has just been used, and like I said, just me being on this walk that I've been on these last 15 years,
Mhm.
you start to really see the world for what it is. So they're going to sell you AI as a good thing, but there's an agenda that comes with it that I want no parts of. So the further we can keep it away from the music industry, the better,
The better it is
personally.
for us. Okay. Let's talk about some things, and this is going to be like the last segment, but just want to get to know you a little better as a person.
Oh.
So you you mentioned, so it's more about like what life bring sorry what music brings you rather than the music itself.
Hmm.
You mentioned before that there's when you get paid in this day and time, you split it with so many people.
Hmm.
So in reality, if you're going to tell your son, and he decides to pursue, like for example, he tells you he wants to pursue music,
Oh yeah,
will you
yeah.
be
This
able
car
to
right here.
will you
Tell me
be
this.
able to tell him that, yeah, you can make a living being a producer or a sound engineer? Or are you going to tell him, yeah, maybe try to make a living somewhere else and just pursue this as a passion?
It's the funniest thing in the world. My son's name is Maestro, and it was a gift that my wife gave to me because that's what my father was always calling me, the maestro, the man controlling the music.
Mhm.
So, he looks just like me. He can sing already. My father got him his first guitar, so he's kind of already trying to follow in my footsteps. But there's a
Mhm.
part of me, little teensy weensy bit, that wants him to go into rocket science. But I do tell him that, you have to learn the business. So I'm doing all the learning for you. If you want to take music serious, I'll get you on the right track. It's one of them things where, hey, when you don't profit from it, nepotism can be a terrible thing. But if you're in position,
Right.
yeah, set your family up to win. So, as long as he has an interest in music, he'll have me in his corner. But if he decides to do something else, I completely understand. It's not a problem.
Okay. So a little bit more about you. Is there, so outside of music and outside of your son, what do you like doing?
See, I don't know what all I can and can't say on this on this platform. I will say it like this. I will say it like this. Where you are, there is a plant that grows, and if you happen to set it on fire and breathe in what it burns, there are effects that take place in your body, and you get to feeling more relaxed. I like to
Mhm.
do that from time to time. So I like to eat good food, but I've been on my journey, so I had to swear off pork, and I learned that they hide pork in almost everything. So now I have to come up with a whole new diet for myself. But I like to engage in great herbs, good food. I like to be in the presence of good people. So I'm really just a normal guy. I just love a good time, and I like to have those around me be all right. I don't. It's hard enough being me. So
Mhm.
I like to try. I try to tell everyone that every day is above ground is a good one, as long as you
Right.
remember that. So,
Right.
you know, outside of music, it's just more music. It don't necessarily sound like music, but it's a harmonious place that I like to be in with my loved ones. So,
Okay. All right. And for my final question, I guess,
mhm.
what would you say is your watermark in the music industry? Like your signature.
uh, that's hard to say for me right now because remember how I said I feel like the East Coast version of Blast and Kendrick Lamar. I kind of like parallel them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at where Kendrick is now, he's been in the industry for about 15 years, and it looks like he's just now reaching his prime.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am. I've taken a lot of my accolades. Uh, my my producer tag actually comes from my very first placement ever, and then after that placement, I got a placement with one of my favorite artists in the world, Raekwon from the Wu Tang Clan. on a mixtape that he did for his label, and then from there on to the records that we spoke on. So it's like it's just another level at a time. I'm just climbing, and where I'm from, those are major accomplishments, and they're, inspiring and influential to a lot of the people that know me personally or just know that I'm from where they're from. But I feel like there's so much more ground to cover for us to go. I haven't even hit my prime yet, so I'm not really sure about a signature unless you would know me for a guy that tries to be focused on the most high at all times, where I
Right.
can.
Right. Okay, well, this has been great, and I really am serious. When you go to LA, I
Oh
don't
yeah,
want to have.
oh yeah. I went to the Grammys in 2023, and it takes 4.5 hours to tell that story. So that's why.
I will reserve half a day for you.
Oh yeah, it was
Okay,
a great
so
time.
just in case people wanted to check your work out, where do you want them to go outside of the
Uh,
Bandcamp?
Yeah, of course, mantis.bandcamp.com. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/official mantis. Uh, where we got Twitter and X, Mantis186. Blue Sky, Mantis186. Instagram, This Is Mantis. My blog, thisismantis.com. I'm everywhere on the internet. There's no place you can't find me. I probably should be a little bit more active online. I think that's one thing I don't like about what the world has become. To be a
Hmm.
successful musician these days, you have to be a content creator, and
Right.
but I do have a brand new iPhone, so I might be able to pump out some content for you real soon. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I still use iPhone in many of my content. Okay, thank you, Mantis. I am going to stop recording, but please stay on.
Definitely.